Hey guys, I have a prepared statement from the league office that I want to read. I will stick around to answer a couple questions after. On Thursday evening at 11:08 p.m. Eastern Time, we had a trade come across my desk between the Jibby Johns and Teflon Don. I'd made a comment in jest to our group chat that even if they combined both of their teams, they would still be mega stinky booty cheeks ass. That's a comment I continue to stand behind today. Taking this challenge quite literally, they decided to act in bad faith and unprofessionally and agree to a trade in principle that was clearly an attempt to incite outrage amongst our ownership group. Although certain owners in this league with room temperature IQs interpreted this as a real trade, and they questioned my executive powers to veto such a trade, which is why I'm appearing before you today. Put simply, this type of behavior cannot and will not be tolerated. After a thorough investigation into these dealings, I have concluded and made a decision to place both Jibby Johns and Teflon Don on a 1-year probation. Any additional misuse of league resources, brain space, or any simple mistakes that just catch me on the wrong day will result in hefty fines, sanctions, or possible league expulsion. I truly dare you to start a player on bye. All right, I'll take a couple questions. Yeah, I'll stop you right there. My mind went there first, the C word, collusion. That's the dirty word we don't like to hear as a commissioner. When you hear collusion, you immediately have to go to motive. And so starting with Jibby Johns, I think he's still 2 years delinquent on his league dues. We're on a payment plan, but seems to have forgotten that. And I do see that this year he's scheduled for 3 weddings that his fiance has put on the calendar. 1 in China, 1 in France, and 1 in New York City. So immediately you kind of go financial. That's a pretty nice pile of change to win this league. So I thought maybe there was something there. Then my mind went, well, if it's not financial, could this have been these guys had a little too much to drink and maybe there was a sexual favors exchanged in order to make this trade? And, speaking to a couple of the owners, past roommates and friends, I would say with Mr. Caffey, his fraternity brothers, I feel pretty confident in saying that was just a phase sophomore year. And as far as Mr. Bilo, he went to Penn State, Altoona. So most of those young men are incarcerated. So it's a little harder to really get the full picture there. But, I think with Latif on the motive side, if you ask Latif his 10 favorite athletes, he's probably going to get 5 or 6 of those folks' names wrong. So I thought maybe he just clicked on the wrong name. Maybe it was a real deal at some point, and Mr. Caffey just got the names mixed up. But ultimately, I think what our investigation concluded is that this was a bad joke. It was a bad joke. They had a couple too many Mai Tais. Anyone knows, either of these young men, they know that they can handle their alcohol about as well as a freshman on spring break. So I think we're just going to kind of leave it at that. It was a bad joke. I vetoed. I used my powers in a fair and I think a fair way, and I think anyone that says otherwise is really fishing for a story here. Okay. Yeah. No, I saw the article. I think it's fair. Ken, I think you're referring to the article that said Latif only is competitive in this league when the Eagles' offense is elite. It really just depends if you believe in math. You look at the Mike Vick year, you look at the Saquon year, the years he won championships, and most other years he's fairly non-competitive. So I think he does, as a homer, he plays his way, and I respect that. And he has 2 rings because of it. There's not a whole lot more to say there. Yeah, it's a good follow-up. I think, Latif being able to use the trade functionality on the app is encouraging. I think, we all heard that he wasn't able to filter on last year's stats on the website. I think gave a couple of owners pause, saying, wait, this guy really won 2 championships and doesn't know you can look up last year's stats. So knowing he can trade, I think is a big development for the franchise. And really, I think speaks volumes to how much he continues to learn as an owner and truly gets better. Jibby Jones, it's good to hear his name. I frankly forgot he was in the league for a moment. We really haven't heard from him in quite a while. So it was good for him to get involved and, meet with an owner. I think it's pretty nice to see as someone that, you got to think back to Antonio Brown in his prime when anyone was really talking about the Johns. So, I know this hasn't really played out the way he's wanted it to, but just good to see he's active. Haven't seen him on the waiver wire in a couple years, but I think ultimately it's good to see him back. And I had to make sure I still had his number, but I did, and we had a nice chat, a good catch up. Any other questions? Yeah, no, that's kind of a separate investigation. I can understand why you'd want to connect those dots. He has spent a lot of time in China recently. I don't know that, there's any tampering going on. I spoke with Chairman Xi. He told me that John was a really good visitor, a really good tourist. He asked me about dual citizenship. I don't think that's something we'd really consider at this point. And also looking for a 16-team expansion to include a couple Chinese nationals. At this point, we're not really looking to expand the league to the Oriental East, but I do appreciate Chairman Xi getting back to me. And, Jibby Jones for really being a global participant in this league is, I think, ultimately a good thing. Tom. Yeah, Tom, I saw the picture. With AI, there's a lot of things we can do out there that, may or not be accurate representations. What I would tell folks is that, the Jibby Jones have had multiple failed side hustles that really involved printing of T-shirts. So if you are looking to buy a T-shirt, I would encourage you to get the product first before you send the cash there. I know there's been a couple complaints through the Better Business Bureau. So if you do plan to acquire a T-shirt, I wouldn't encourage it, but if you do, make sure we get the merchandise first. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Ken. Yep, he still has both quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. 2-0. Yeah, still an F. Okay. Anyone else? Yeah, the New York guys weighing in late. This trade happened on a Thursday. Woke up on Saturday to a couple of the owners, really not happy with my veto decision. I spoke to mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani, and he told me while the state is intercepting text messages to review them to ensure a safe space for both the illegal immigrant and LGBTQ plus population, that they barely read them, and then they distributed them in batches to phones. So I think that is part of the reason for the delay to the New York folks on why they're not getting their text messages on time. And we'll continue to work with state and local officials on that to make sure owners are informed of decisions and understand what's happening. That's a good question. I'm finally happy to talk about something a little positive. You guys know that our league is big in the charity space, and we're very philanthropic. We try to be every year. So if ultimately we do decide to levy fines on these organizations, I am happy to report that we're going to try to get Releasing Doves an iPhone. I excommunicated him from the group chat about 3 years ago for having green text bubbles. That's a decision I continue to stand behind. No one wants green text bubbles in their group chat. And frankly, as a man approaching 40, I don't know how you look at yourself in the mirror when you're sending green text bubbles and look like a Nigerian scammer when you're texting your friends. So we are going to put that money to good use if the Johns and Teflon Don do ultimately get fined. Anything else? Yeah, no, happy with it. Took a loss to Thailand last week, 1-1. Ultimately, I'm trying to win a championship, and the fact that I have to get up here and do these sort of things just takes my attention away from trying to win. I consider myself a tier 1 organization. I'm playing burnt toast this week. We have a lot of work to do before tomorrow. And, when what I would consider tier 2 or 3 organizations in this league cause some unrest, it makes me lose sleep. I have to prepare for these things, and ultimately I want to focus on bringing a championship to the Fantasy Sports Legend organization. So that's all I got, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.